Hey everyone, we are live. We are live. We are live. Welcome to the Money Level Show. It is your host, Daryl Thomas. And here we think, act, and prosper. This channel focuses on changing financial trajectories and building legacies. I don't bring no scams, none of that. I'm probably one of the most conservative investors out here, even though I do speculate a little bit. But the goal is to bring high quality education and knowledge. Nothing on this episode or even channel is financial advice. I simply share the moves that I make to build wealth and to gain financial freedom. So we got a lot to talk about tonight. So if you are in the audience, be sure to drop a comment so that I can acknowledge you. Love to engage with you. And go ahead and kick the intro. So y'all, we'll be back.
Think, act, and prosper. You are now tuned into the Money Level Show.
Hey, we are back. We are back. We are back. The title of this live is People Need to Wake Up. And I've been, sharing this type of information for a while. I've started this channel back in October 2020, going on 3 years. And, some people still haven't woken up. You know what I'm saying? But people need to wake up because there's so much risk in the system. There's so much risk with our money. There's so much risk with the government debt. And we're going to get into a lot of that right now. So if you're tuning in, be sure to buckle up your seatbelts and hang on for the ride as we get into this. And if you're watching, be sure to drop a comment so that we can engage with each other. So we're not robots, looking at each other and not engaging. Let's engage as human beings, right? So I'm going to go ahead and start by playing a clip from my recent interview. If you have not subscribed to my channel yet, be sure to subscribe to my channel, The Money Level Show. This recent interview I did with Andy Schectman of Miles Franklin, and we're just going to watch the intro of the video and we're going to unpack it. All right. So let's go ahead and watch that.
iTrust Capital is a tax-advantaged crypto IRA platform.
Hey, the channel got to get paid,
only
so I
1%
gotta have ads
transaction
on here,
fees?
y'all.
This
Gotta
is your
have
best
ads.
bet.
States is less than 0.5% of total assets held, from the Harvard Endowment Fund all the way down to Joe and Jane Sixpack. If people wake up because the banks start to crater, and I think you will see that, more banks are going to fail as rates continue to rise and the economy slows. And
All right, so we had a recent live. I did a recent live about the banking system. And I talked about how most of these banks have a lot of debt that are paying low interest. So when banks are buying 30-year bonds at less than 1% interest, and now interest rates are higher, they have to sell those bonds at a loss. And so that's what happened with Silicon Valley Bank, as well as Signature Bank and many others. So this is what Andy is talking about, that this risk still exists because banks loaded up when all this money was cheap. This cheap money was flowing in. The M2 money supply went sky high, right? And all these banks had money. And so they started buying these long-term government debt that pays less than 1%. And now all of that debt is devalued because the interest rates are higher and those bonds pay a lot more.
Strains and stresses that it's putting on the system. And when there is a bail-in, where anything over the 250,000 FDIC limit is then taken and bailed into the bank, rather than the taxpayers bailing out the bank, as the Dodd-Frank law says, and people lose everything, I think it will, like that, people will wake up, because most people don't know what a bail-in or that it even exists.
All right, so most people don't even know that a bail-in or any of that exists. So Andy is saying some real stuff here, y'all. He's saying some real stuff. And what he's saying is that banks legally can bail in on your money. Obviously, we'll get to the FDIC part here shortly. But in the law, if banks are not bailed out by taxpayers, they can do what's called a bail-in. and they can take the depositor's money. It's in the fine print, it's in the law, right? So he's saying that this is a risk, right? Some people may be like, oh, well, I got FDIC. FDIC covers 250,000. I don't have 250,000, so I'm good to go. Okay, in some instances, yes, right? But FDIC on balance sheet, I think they only have 100 and so billion, and they're backing up like what 10 trillion or something like that in deposits. So FDIC does, if every bank across the country was going bust because they had bank runs and people were pulling their money out of the banks would collapse, and FDIC could not bail everyone out. So that is a huge risk that people don't even think about or don't even know, right? So FDIC isn't meant to bail out the whole banking system or every single bank in the United States. It's only meant to be there to support like a few, right? A couple, if it happens here or there, right? So that's important to know, right? And this happened in 1929 crash, right? Leading up to the Great Depression, right? Many people started going to banks, pulling their money out. The banks could not stay open, and ultimately the banks failed. And so then it led to the Great Depression. So it's important to note, right? And so that's what Andy is talking about. And then there's another clip from Andy that I want to show. Be sure to go check out the full interview if you have not yet. But we're going to check out this clip as well. All right, I gotta break some of this down. I know some of y'all watching may not know what the heck he just said, and that's the reason why I have this channel, so I can, kind of filter that information for you all. So he's talking about Saudi Arabia joined the BRICS. The BRICS is the Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So there were multiple countries that joined, including Egypt, Argentina, and United Emirates, and Saudi Arabia. So what's the important piece of Saudi Arabia? So when Richard Nixon back in 71, 73, something like 71, he took the dollar off the gold standard. So you had what was called the Bretton Woods Agreement, which happened in 1944, prior to World War II ending, right before. And these nations came together at Bretton Woods, and they created pretty much the monetary system that we currently live on, which is the US dollar being the reserve currency of the world. So they created that, and the countries sent their gold to the US, which was stored in our vaults, I believe at Fort Knox, and pretty much like it was to back the currency. So the dollar was gold backed at one point. Then you got Richard Nixon take the dollar off the gold standard, because when we started spending a lot of money, right, countries started coming back demanding their gold back. Like, hey, you're devaluing the dollar, you're spending more dollars than you have gold in the vault. Give us our gold back. So pretty much gold was a restrictive system that restricted the governments from spending too much money, because you cannot spend more money than you had in gold. So now, why is this important with Saudi Arabia? When Nixon took Saudi Arabia off took the dollar off of the gold standard, we entered the petrodollar standard, which was that instead of being backed by gold, we made an agreement with Saudi Arabia where they would only sell oil in dollars, right? And we would provide military protection for that. So in that situation, that was the agreement for a long time. Now Saudi Arabia is selling oil and other currencies such as the Chinese yuan and other things. And then you have this BRICS nations that they just joined. So this creates a lot of risk for the dollar because the BRICS nations want to challenge the dollar system. I mean, they have the majority of the world population, which, I mean, the majority of the world doesn't live the same luxuries that we live in the United States or in the West. They don't have the same amount of electricity. They don't have the same amount of wealth. They don't have the same amount of, obviously convenience, with vehicles or whatnot. And so they want to challenge the West because they're like, hey, we're tired of our people living like this, insufficient energy and such. And these people are living like kings and queens, off plenty of energy, right? What's up, Neophyte? How you doing? I'm just in here breaking it down. So this is a big thing that not many people are really tuning into. And so I think that Miles Franklin. So I think that the BRICS nations is something serious. Obviously, I mean, there's some catches to it, right? I mean, the dollar system is very complex. I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon, but we know that historically, I mean, the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun, right? So there's countries rise, countries fall, right? And so it's only a matter of time before the United States falls. That's just a historical thing that's happened multiple times throughout history. And it can't be denied. We saw the Greek Empire, we saw the Roman Empire fall, we saw the Persian Empire fall, we saw the United Kingdom fall, we saw the Dutch fall, the Deutschmark, and all of that. So it's only a matter of time for the United States. That's just the reality, right? And so we have to be aware of like, okay, this is going to come at some point, whether it's in our lifetimes or not, it's coming. And so you got to think about your kids' future and all of that, right? So definitely important things to think about. And so my guy Neophyte Stacker said Miles Franklin, okay, congrats. Yeah, so if you have not if you didn't know, I am a affiliate with Miles Franklin. The information is in the description, but to protect your wealth and protect your money, if you buy precious metals through them, which is gold, silver, platinum, palladium, I receive a small commission, which supports my channel. So you can support my channel by purchasing precious metals through Miles Franklin. And all you have to do is use the email address or the phone number that is listed in the description, and just let them know that the Money Level Show sent you or Daryl Thomas sent you. So appreciate you bringing that up, Neophyte. So this has to concern people here. This is what we're going to next, right? If anybody else is watching, drop a comment. I see quite a few viewers on, but drop a comment. I made a post about this. I didn't get a whole lot of engagement on it on Facebook, but I asked, does this concern anyone? This is the United States government debt. Does this concern anyone? I want to know, right? Because it definitely concerns me. And this is what I'm hedging. Like, I rather own precious metals against, like, imagine when this comes to collapse. It's going to collapse. People think that countries can just accumulate all this debt and just last forever and everything's all happy and fun. No, that doesn't happen, right? When countries accumulate this much debt, they begin debasing their currency. So what that means is, like, say, like during the Roman Empire, when they used actual physical and silver coins, what they did was they would start putting copper in the coins, to debase the currency. Like, okay, let's take out some of the gold, put the copper in. Then at some point, they would pretty much like eradicate all of the silver or the gold from the coins. And then that's when the currency fails, right? Because it becomes worthless. So this currently happens with the dollar. We'll get to the dollar and the dollar's value here soon, but look at this amount of debt, right? So, by 19, whatever this is right here, before 2000, we had less than 5 trillion in debt. Now we're at going on like 33 trillion. I mean, in the last 30 years, less than 30 years. Like, this has to concern someone. This has to concern people. And that's why I'm saying people need to wake up, because like when this comes collapsing and you're stuck in the fiat currency that's backed by just faith, that isn't backed by any hard commodity, isn't backed by gold like how it used to be, like, you're gonna be doomed. Right? I mean, I hate to be like doom and gloom, but that's just the reality. When this house of cards comes tumbling down, I'm not trying to be in a vulnerable position. I want to be in a responsible position where it's like, okay, I'm going to own precious metals. I'm going to own real assets so that I can protect my family, so that I can take care of my family when this comes collapsing. I mean, because what goes up must fall down, So I just think that that's a very important topic that people should be looking at. So Neophyte went back to the BRICS. I feel like if anyone challenges the U.S., especially the currency, war follows, and we have the greatest navy in the history of the world. Yeah. So if anyone challenges the currency, yeah, war is always in the cards, right? However, the issue is that with war, you got to have energy. Like, you and I, we kind of had this conversation before. But like, we depleted the strategic petroleum reserve, right? And that's supposed to be used during wartime. And then we had a recent article where Biden stopped drilling drilling for oil in Alaska. And then they passed the methane tax. So it's like, okay, if you're going to be prepared for war, you got to have energy. That's why the military is even coming out and talking about the nuclear energy and the uranium. They're like, hey, this is a risk to the military, if we don't produce this stuff. And so like our administration is, I mean, if you really think that we have a solid administration right now, I mean, that's a whole nother discussion. We ain't even gonna get into that. But the policies that are being passed, right, that prevents energy production, so that we can be in a powerful position, so that we can be more debt free, so that we can be less reliant on other nations for rare earth materials and all these other things that we need. Why are we importing the stuff that we can make ourselves in our own country? That just makes no dang sense to me, right? And so if you're going to go to war, you got to have energy. I mean, this happened in World War II when Japan, when Pearl Harbor and everything, and Japan wanted more oil from the United States. United States was like, nah, we ain't really dealing with you and stuff. And then, they went and bombed Pearl Harbor because they needed oil, right? So these commodities are needed, and right now we're not producing a lot. There's still an undersupply. The supply is still tight. And so that's a tangent though. So we see the government debt is this high. I'm not placing any bets on this. I'm betting against it. Right? Because this ain't gonna last forever. History shows that it ain't gonna last forever. So I'm not gonna be hanging my hat on this. And I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon. I don't see it going down. Like, when is the chart going down? Like, when have we paid the debt? Like, it just goes straight up. It goes straight up. Like, nobody's paying it. The politicians gonna keep kicking the can down the road. They're not gonna cut spending. They're not gonna balance the budget. I mean, the budget is at almost a $2 trillion deficit. So they're spending almost $2 trillion over what they budgeted for. They're not gonna cut Social Security. They're not gonna cut Medicaid, right? I mean, because they will have a whole lot of issues. People will be at the front door of the Capitol again, like January 6th. Like, I think if they were to cut it, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's just reality, right? And so I just don't see this going down. And inflation's continue to go up. Like, the cost of living, cost of college, cost of housing, everything continues to go up. It's not going down. So these are some major risks that we have to look out for. I'm just going to share this chart here. This is the purchasing power of the dollar. I mean, as you can see, the dollar has lost over 90% of its value since its inception. So the Federal Reserve was established in in 1913, and pretty much the dollar was worth 1/20th of an ounce of gold, which we will get to that. And so this is the purchase power of the dollar. I mean, $1 back in these days, you could pay your rent. You could get multiple things, for $1. Now, how many dollars does it take you? All right, this only goes to 2,000. This is way worse than that now. I mean, so that just shows like the dollar loses value over time. And sometimes people will mention like, oh, well, you got to factor in we get paid more than we did then, but real wages are still flat. So like you have to adjust your wages for inflation. Like, I mean, people could pay for multiple things with, if they had $20, they could buy, groceries, pay their rent, all these things, right? And so, but the dollar has lost so much value, and it keeps losing value. And so this is very important because when you look at gold, right? Gold has went up in value. Some people argue that gold has stayed the same, but the dollars went down in value. So as you can see in the Gold Standard Act passed on March 14th, 1900, right? It states that the act fixed the value of $1 at 25.8 grains of 90% pure gold, equivalent to about $20.67 per troy ounce. Very near its historic value. So 20.67 per ounce of gold. Right now, gold is close to, let's see where gold is at. Gold is at $1,942. So now imagine if you would have stored that dollar. Let's say you had $20.67 and you lived in 1910. Hey, I'm going to pass this down to my kids, pass it in the box. And let's say you had an ounce of gold. I'm going to pass $20.67 and an ounce of gold down. Your kids, your grandkids, multiple generations, goes to multiple generations. Then it gets to you now. Now, what is that $20.67 going to buy you today? Because back then it would have bought, paid your rent. It would have paid for your groceries, all these other necessities, your utilities, right? But now it ain't going to buy you nothing. You can barely buy a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with that, right? You can't even get a full tank of gas with $20.67. So that shows the value of the dollar has decreased significantly. Now look at the ounce of gold. The ounce of gold was worth $20.67 then. Now it's worth $1,942. So you would have saved your purchasing power if you would have invested in or held gold to insure your money. So that's a very important piece that we have to consider. What's going on, Marius? It says, all right, Neophyte in here challenging my perspective. Let's see what Neophyte's saying. This is my guy, though. I think the debt will always get managed. If you measure by GDP, we're trailing by a lot of countries. U.S. is at 128%. Well, Japan is people have a lot of economists have explained Japan's situation because Japan they have a way less consumer debt. And so even though the government runs big deficits, the consumers, they save a lot of money. And so they kind of hedge themselves in that way. Here we're at record levels of debt, consumer, everything, right? And then you gotta see, like, when the debt gets paid, the debt only gets paid if you go to war, right? And say you win the war, they wipe out everything, right? They pretty much wipe out a lot of debt after wars. Or, if you devalue the dollar, so through inflation, right? So most countries, what they'll do is like, okay, we need to inflate the debt away. That means that prices of things go higher, taxes go higher, everything, and they pay the debt that way. But we're still talking about, student loan forgiveness. We're trying to forgive debt. We're trying to increase cost of living adjustments to Social Security. We're not increasing taxes. Where is this money coming from? We're not increasing our trade. We're not exporting more than we're importing. So the money has to come from somewhere. I mean, if the Fed is going to print it, which I eventually think they will, I mean, then I expect them to inflate the debt away, right? I mean, but at the same time, they have to deal with the political ramifications for that. They got to deal with the populist ramifications for that. So, I mean, I don't think no one's willing to swallow that pill. And so, if I said, also, I feel like Americans have such a high standard of living. We never struggle like other people in the world. We got multiple cars. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, we have our standard of living is way beyond our means. Most people living like kings when they don't got the money, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I've been guilty of that, right? I've been guilty of that. I can't be self-righteous in here and act like I haven't lived that way. But honestly, I'm making a lot, I'm making the changes I need to make right now. I mean, this is part of the process, part of the journey, but I mean, yeah, we live in like kings and queens, and we love to buy stuff we don't need, right? Stuff we don't need. And I'm guilty of that, but I have a lot more discipline now than I did before. And so, yeah, we definitely have a problem with that. In 2008, everyone around me was doing okay. If they over leveraged themselves, they got their boat or car taken away. Yeah, they see the repo man always lurking. The repo man will come take your car, your boat away. And so, yeah, the repo man will come take your stuff away. I remember, I remember my old stepdad, right? He had this green truck, Dodge truck. He used to take us around in the truck. He used to work at this, factory restaurant and stuff. And he would, and I just remember like he used to hide the truck. Like he would go hide it at his daughter's house, or he would go hide it somewhere, because he was trying to like not pay the bill. The bill was due and the repo man was coming to take away the truck. So, just like Neophyte is saying, like in 2008, when the global financial crisis hit, people got their cars and their boats taken away. The repo man, shows no mercy, right? I know guys that make 50K, 60 and 60K that make 50K a year and 60K trucks, and yeah, so like, this is the issue, is that oftentimes when we increase our income, we increase our consumption, we increase our debt, right? I've been guilty of this. I'm not saying that I have not done this in the past, right? So like my job that I'm at now, I had last year I had got a $20,000 raise. Did I increase my spending? Yes, I did. But I decided to go get my master's degree, and I paid for that out of pocket. So I paid, 13 grand out of pocket. I was like, okay, I got this raise. Let me not just blow all of this money. Let me invest in something so I can keep my income higher. So I ended up getting my master's degree. Well, I'll be done in the end of June, end of October. And I paid for it all out of pocket. Right. So instead of, I delayed a lot of the self gratification instead of increasing, my consumption and such, because I got a $20,000 raise. I started going back to school so that I could keep my income at a decent level and have a higher paying job. So that's the way I did it, because otherwise I could have just blew the 20 grand raise. I could just blew it and look back and like increase my standard of living, and been stuck, and Rick Will has this good saying where he says, when your outgo exceeds your income, then your your income becomes your downfall, or something like that. I'm probably butchering the quote, but he says it all the time, right? But he's saying, like, whenever your what you spend exceeds how much you bring in, then your lifestyle that you're living becomes your downfall, because you're spending more on things that don't go up in value. You're not holding value, whether that be through precious metals, whether that be through stocks or whatever, right? Assets, money, that your money's not making money for you, and so, I just think that, you have to make wise decisions. You have to. And I hope people are, watching this and taking heed to this, because people need to wake up. I think if we have, a situation where the economy is in danger, I think that many people aren't going to be prepared. Many people will not be prepared. And I'm not saying I'm a prepper or anything like that. But it's important to, be prepared for whatever comes your way. So appreciate you all for joining me today. I have a really good appreciate a neophyte. I will definitely look at those videos. I have a new interview coming out with Josh Young of Bison Interests. It was a great interview today. We dove into the oil market. I was on the interview with Benjamin, a good friend of mine, who runs the ROI channel and the return on your investment. And we had a nice interview. So I'm going to be releasing that soon. Be sure to head over to my YouTube channel and subscribe if you have not yet. Mostly if you're on Facebook, or if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, because I have some good interviews that need to get some more views. This is some good stuff. Hey, my guy Andrew gave me the right one. Thank you. I knew I butchered it. When your outgo exceeds your income, your upkeep becomes your downfall. Rick Rule shares that all the time. When your outgo, your expenses exceeds your income, your upkeep, trying to keep up your lifestyle, becomes your downfall. That's good. Appreciate you, Andrew, for showing up and doing that. I need to get some sound effects on here, y'all. I gotta start uploading some sound effects, like some horns, like doo-doo-doo. I gotta do that. I gotta put that in the StreamYard, so that whenever we have these excited moments, like somebody bails me out like Andrew did, I just want to hit the button, right? So yeah, appreciate you all for joining today. I'll be back on live again. Interview with Josh Young will be coming out soon, so be on the lookout for that. In the meantime, be sure to go check out the interviews I released recently. Some really good interviews. I had one with Natalie Brunell, Todd Bubba Horwitz, and Andy Schechtman. So be sure to check them out. So y'all take care. The information is in the description. If you want to support the channel by purchasing precious metals through Miles Franklin, I am an affiliate with them. So be sure to check them out. So y'all take care. All right. Peace.